this episode of the podcast, I talk with my friend Mike Hill. You may know him from the band Tombs, the Necromaniacs Podcast, and Everything Went Black podcast. Me and Mike talk our favorite vampire films of all time, like a little top 10 list. So pretty diverse. There's a lot of good things in there, a lot of hidden gems. So hope you enjoy that. And don't forget to check out his podcast, like I just mentioned, the Necromaniacs Podcast and the Everything Went Black podcast. And also his killer band Tombs. I mean, if you're down with some really killer black metal, heavy metal, Tombs is fucking awesome. So definitely check them out. But yeah, hope you enjoy this one. And thanks for listening. All right, Mike. Thanks for being on the podcast again.
Hey, thanks for having me. It's always fun talking to you, man.
Yeah, I enjoyed a hell of talking with you too, man. Like, we got a lot in common when it comes to movies and music.
You can say that again, man. We're both metalheads. We both like horror films, and that's pretty much how we roll.
And the cool thing is you like quality horror films too, like good stuff. You know, I've encountered a bunch of people. I mean, not dissing on anybody's like horror taste or whatever, but you know, when you try to strike up a conversation with somebody at a show or something and they start throwing some real dumb shit at you and stuff, I'm like, oh, this is not going to last too long.
Yeah, I mean, I feel like horror is kind of on like a resurgence over the last few years, but unfortunately, whenever there seems to be major studio involvement, that never really delivers, because I think that they're thinking more about marketing and, you know, crossing over to like, you know, high school kids or something like that. And it's not really serving legitimate horror fans a lot of the time.
Right. That was like with the newest Conjuring film or whatever. I liked the first two. I thought they're good for like big budget films, but like, I think it was the Conjuring 3. It was the newest one, but I did not dig that whatsoever. It was super boring.
I didn't even see it, man. The first two, I definitely back those. I haven't, I will see the third one just because that's what I'm like, you know. I will watch it, but I haven't gotten around to it yet.
It's a solid like 7, I guess. You know, it is worth a watch, but it's nothing I'd ever return to rewatch or anything. You know, just it didn't do it for me. And I know James Wan like produced it, but did not direct it, and I think that had a big thing to do with it. I guess he directed the first 2 Conjuring films, and you know, with his like eye behind the camera and stuff, I think it adds a lot to those films.
One of the big mainstream shows that I actually like, and I know that people are going to make fun of me when I say this, but I've always liked American Horror Story, man. and the latest season, which is their final season, I think is pretty awesome, actually.
No, I'm right there with you, dude. I've been an American Horror Story fan since like season 1. I love them all. I mean, there's a few that are kind of weak compared to the rest of them, but overall, it's a great fucking series, and it gets super dark, you know, especially for something that's on like regular cable TV, not even on like HBO or nothing like that, you know. I really like American Horror Story, and yes, this new season's really cool with the kind of vampire type things or whatever that's on there that, you know, they take the pill to unlock their true potential and stuff. And if you don't have potential, you turn to like a fucking kind of a zombie type vampire creature thing.
Well, yeah, I mean, and that goes hand in hand with what we're talking about, you know, this episode. And it just, you know, it's synchronous that that's playing right now. I think it just wrapped actually this week, is that first segment with the vampires on American Horror Story.
Yeah, I think there's one more episode. I've watched the one that came out this week. I think there's one more. Then it's gonna be 6 total, and then they're gonna do another 6 on a totally different subject matter. It's supposed to be like, if I'm not mistaken, it's some type of like alien situation that's gonna be going on. So
that's my understanding, and I don't know, that show. I thought, even though each season stands alone as a separate storyline, I always loved that they just had the same actors. Like, they were just, you know, playing different roles. And I don't know, I just thought that was great. It had this kind of like ensemble, like traveling, you know, like this traveling vaudeville kind of vibe to it, where everyone would just put on different costumes and be different people. And I guarantee, you know, probably the second half of the season is probably the same actors again, playing just different roles. I always enjoyed that about American Horror Story.
yeah, same here. And it's a solid group of actors. Like, they're all really fucking badass. Like, there's no slouches amongst the cast.
Well, in a way, I kind of feel like it made Evan Peters' career, really. I mean, he's, I think, a fine actor, and most people know him from American Horror Story, I think.
Yeah, that's true. He was in something way back in the day when I was in like middle school. He was in like some kind of like teen drama type thing that was on TV, which wasn't that good. And that was the last time I seen him for a while. Then he reappeared on season one of American Horror Story. I was like, oh, that's cool. And now he's huge, you know.
Yeah, good for him, man. He's like definitely like a deserving, talented guy. And I remember him from this MMA movie called Never Back Down 2 or something like that I watched. It
Hmm.
had Michael Jai White was in it, and this miscellaneous other people that were involved in MMA, and he played this like kind of upstart like fight promoter. I don't know. It was just the movie was like entertaining, but I don't recommend it to anyone. You know what I mean? It's like one of those films. But
Yeah.
that's the only place I'd ever seen him before American Horror Story.
Yeah, I mean, pretty much American Horror Story kickstarted his career to where it's at now. And I think once American Horror Story is done, I think we'll see him in more like major films.
100% agree with that. Yeah.
So before we get into our like this episode is going to be top 10 favorite vampire films of all time. And you know, that's a hard one, but before we get into that, is there anything like noteworthy you've been watching, like TV, movie wise, that you want to talk about before we get into it?
Well, the American Horror Story series is, its final season is here, and that's something I'm, excited about. I saw a couple of really bad movies, and I saw *Malignant*, and if I don't know if you follow, if anyone out there wants to check out our assessment of that movie, it's on Necromaniacs, which is a podcast I co-host with Mike Scandato and Jeff Kashid, and that's something I just watched and have not such great feelings about that one.
Yeah, I have mixed feelings on it. I definitely didn't like the first half of it. I thought it was like I thought it was gonna be like a supernatural type, a normal James Wan thing, which is fine. So the first half was just a little it drug on for me, but second half it picked up and got really fucking crazy when I give it a little bit of a spoiler, but not much of one, so it shouldn't fuck up your watching experience. But when she's in the when the creature is in the police station, this takes out like 50 dudes or whatever with guns with a knife. I thought that was pretty fucking cool.
Yeah, there's definitely some brutal scenes in there which are cool, but by and large, I was just kind of like I never really fully immersed myself in the story, and I think I was just like, yeah, I don't know, man, like how much more of this is left, really. But
Yeah, yeah, I was totally underwhelmed. If I was to score anything, I would say like a 7.5 out of 10.
yeah, and though I'm a huge Stephen King fan, I never read the Dark Tower series, so I'm I don't know, I got maybe 40 more pages of the Gunslinger left, so that's I've been reading that, and for anyone out there who follows me on Instagram, it's like you'll see that I've been also buying all these weird fiction anthology collections. So I've been, checking out a bunch of like new authors that show up in these anthologies of cosmic horror / weird fiction stuff. So that's pretty much what I've been reading.
Yeah, it's such a long journey too with the Dark Towers. Like it took me like 2 years to get through all the books, maybe 2.5 years, and I was doing audiobooks, so I just listened to them when I'm at work driving around or wherever I had the free time, I would play the audiobook, and it still took me 2.5 years to get through the whole series because they're so damn massive and crazy.
Yeah, I mean, I'm reading the books, and they're great, man. I banged right through the Gunslinger in a couple of like probably about a week and a half or so. I mean, I got like 40 pages left, so I'm pretty stoked about it. Definitely, I mean, I love his work, and I know that just now it's like okay to say you like Stephen King because I think because of the sheer volume of material he has out, people are starting to take him more seriously as an author. And but I've loved him my whole life, man. I've been reading Stephen King ever since I was in high school.
Yeah, same here. I've been reading Stephen King since probably middle school, high school, and stuff, and went on from there. I think the first time I got into King, I found one of my uncle's books, and I think it was It or Salem's Lot, possibly. And I started reading on that when I was really young. I was like, holy shit, I mean, it's still my favorite Stephen King story. Like, it is fucking crazy.
The funny thing is, I don't know, like The Outsider, the book came out like 2 years ago, maybe. I remember when that book came out, I read it, and around that time, I did an interview for to help promote a Tombs record. It was like with some press guy or whatever, some dude who writes for some music fucking site or something, and he was asking me about music and what are you reading now? Because I always talk about like literature and stuff, and he's like, I think I was reading The Outsider at the time, and I said Stephen King's The Outsider, and he was just kind of like disappointed that like I wasn't reading like fucking Hemingway or like Clark Ashton Smith or something, and I'm just like, what's wrong with Stephen King, man? It's fucking great, man. He's gonna be put in that canon eventually, like maybe after he passes away, which hopefully isn't for a long time.
Right.
They're gonna mention him as one of the great American authors, in my opinion.
Oh yeah, 100%, man. Like, and all the stuff he's written and what he's still writing, it's obscene. Like, I don't. I mean, his mind, man. I couldn't imagine being Stephen King. Like, what goes through his mind, like to be able to write so much and also have so many different voices in each of his books. They're not like all. It's not like you're reading Stephen King. Oh, that's Stephen King. He really can change that shit up because he can go from like doing detective type novels to straight up horror, thriller. He does fantasy with like the Dark Tower stuff. Like,
yeah,
that's some talented stuff there.
Exactly, and I think that eventually he's going to be mentioned in the same breath as like other American, great American authors.
Most definitely. Have you my standout stuff I've been watching or shows is Chapel White. Have you started that?
You know what? Yes, I have. That by your recommendation. That's another series I've been checking out, and that's speaking of Stephen King. That's pretty awesome, actually. I'm really enjoying that one.
Yeah, I'm on like I think episode 4 because they're releasing them like in weird like release dates instead of like every week. They're doing like every 2 weeks and sometimes every like 3 weeks. It's pretty weird. They're only doing like 6 or 8 total episodes. So, and every one I've watched so far is really, really good. And they finally revealed like the actual antagonist on the last episode. I don't want to give anything away if anybody wants to watch it and stuff, but yeah, it's pretty cool. It lives up to the like myth of like Salem's Lot and all that because it's all connected. Salem's Lot, Jerusalem's Lot, and all that. So really, really good.
Definitely quality. I'm on episode. I finished episode 3, so I'm right behind you on it.
Yeah, the next one, man, you're gonna be blown away when certain things come to light.
Yeah.
Movie. Oh, sorry. Go ahead.
No, that's all I had to say. Really, there's nothing.
Movie wise, I got a real weird one for you. That's really cool. And I don't know if I would like technically classify it as horror. It has horror elements to it. It's something of its own, and it's on Shudder right now. It's called Mosquito State.
I saw that pop up in the stream, and I haven't had a chance to watch it yet. So what's the lowdown on that one?
Well, like I said, there's some horror elements to it. Like there's definitely it's there, but just the storyline is this like super smart like an investor type guy. Well, I'm not investor. He's more like a stock market guru or whatever. He can like predict when the stock markets are going to drop and all this stuff. He comes up with this new program that makes everybody super rich, including himself. And he's got some things going on with him they never really explain. Like he's very animalistic, almost ape-like in the way he moves around and stuff. Really weird, and it adds to his character. Like it really makes it interesting. So you got him, and he's like the main character of the movie and stuff. And he gets a mosquito stuck in his shirt at a party. Like simple enough, like, oh, mosquito on his shirt, that's nothing. Well, he gets home and the mosquito decides to lay eggs inside of his skin and then stay in his house with him. Like the mosquito lives with him. It's almost like a partner for him. And then they start breeding in his apartment like thousands and thousands and thousands of mosquitoes, and he can control them eventually. It's very fucking weird. Like nobody really dies or nothing like that, but he ends up getting these like whelps on his face, like these giant ass mosquito whelps all over his body. And he acts like there's nothing there. Like people ask him anything wrong. Oh, I'm fine. I feel great. And they kind of empower him to kind of take up these bullies at his job that's been fucking with him for so long. Like the mosquitoes give him power. And this is super, super bizarre, man. He controls like thousands upon thousands of mosquitoes, all living in his apartment.
That sounds almost like a Thomas Ligotti story in some ways, or maybe even like something that would have been on Channel Zero, like that show.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
Yeah,
I mean
most
that
definitely.
sounds great, man. It sounds like right up my alley.
Yeah, it's super good. I definitely recommend you checking that one out. And another one that kind of caught my eye, well, kind of caught me off guard actually because the first movie was horrible. It was a Ouija Origin of Evil, and
I haven't seen it.
it's a kind of it's a mainstream film. Came out a few years ago and stuff. Like the first film wasn't worth the crap. I didn't like it. But this one's directed by Mike Flanagan,
Oh,
and
okay.
it's
Yeah.
really good. Like if you like supernatural stuff with some good scares and kind of dark nature, it's good. I recommend it if for the mainstream watching people. Like this is a good one.
Yeah, Mike Flanagan it usually does good stuff for sure.
Yeah, I'm a fan of his. So, but yeah, that's the things that have been catching my eye lately. And when it goes to, like reading stuff, I'm still reading Stephen King's the. Let me check on my little book thing here. I'm reading the Institute by Stephen King, which is it's pretty good. It's more sci-fi than horror. It deals with like telepathic kids and
I'll,
the government trying to control them for like bad shit. So
I'll probably get around to that at some point. I mean, he's got so much stuff out there.
he does, man. And I use this app called Scribd where it's like $9 a month, unlimited audiobooks, unlimited regular books to read on your phone or tablet and stuff, and pretty much everything on there is Stephen King. So I think he's got like a deal with them where you know he has the majority of all the books on there or something.
That's awesome.
So I definitely recommend those. All right, so you ready for this epic top 10 vampire film list?
I'm ready.
All
Sure, we're
right.
gonna have a couple of the same films on there.
Oh, it's guaranteed. Yeah.
Yeah.
All right. Well, I'll start down from the bottom at number 10. And this was a hard one because, there's a lot of good vampire films and stuff. So narrowing this list down was a bit of a pain in the ass, but I think I got a pretty solid one. For my number 10, it's going to be Subspecies. And that was directed by Ted Nicolau, who I think did all the Subspecies films. And this is something that brings back like childhood memories and stuff of watching this with my aunt and everything. Because, you know, this would come on like late night TV and stuff. And then Radu, who's the main vampire, would scare the shit out of me with his long fingernails. And like, yeah, he was just a gnarly looking vampire.
Yeah, that's pretty cool, man. That's a blast from the past for sure, dude. Definitely.
Yeah, and I think there's three or so films I think it's a trilogy if I'm not mistaken, and they're all solid. Like they're all good. And, like Radu still looks like Radu with the makeup effects. I think he actually gets a little bit meaner looking as the series goes on, but fucking solid, man. It's one of my favorites, and it still holds up to this day. So
Was that one of those like Fangoria that they were making films for a while? Was that part of
this
their thing?
this was a Full Moon.
Full Moon. That's okay, but yeah, okay. I thought it was somehow connected to Fangoria too.
It might have been. They might have did like a Fangoria Presents back in the day, but I've always associated with like Full Moon. So.
Okay.
And they do a
That's
lot of quality stuff. I like Full Moon. Like they do some cheesy stuff too, but there's a lot of cool horror to have on there as well. So
well, my number 10 is a movie that Rennie from Starkweather turned me on to called Blood. It's
mm,
came out in 2000, directed by Charlie Cantor, who, if you try to look him up on IMDb, you'll find almost nothing about this guy, and you probably won't find anything about any of the actors in the movie either. And it's
mm,
I don't know, this weird little movie came out, and I don't even think it's on any streaming places. I have a DVD copy of this film, and it's a very bizarre science-based take on vampirism, and
mm,
it has to do with experimenting, trying to create a cure for cancer, and they have this young lady who is the product of this experimentation, and it creates a craving for blood, and there you go. And kind of ruins this guy's life who tries to save her. And it's got a great soundtrack. Came out, very 90s heavy soundtrack with like the Jesus Lizard and stuff like that. And it's a very, very good movie.
Killer. Yeah, I don't think I've seen that one. Does it go by a different name? Because I might be in Internet Movie Database in it right now. I'm not seeing it pop up.
Yeah, as far as I know, it's only known as Blood. And I know there's probably about 200 films named Blood, but
Yeah.
but this one, I'll send you information on it. It's going to take you a minute to really find any info about this movie, because it was, I don't know. It's just one of these like weird, anachronisms that are out there that no one knows about. And it's actually definitely worth checking out, especially, just like it's such a different take on it, and it's not necessarily about supernatural or infecting people with vampires, or, there's no, Dracula element to it or Bram Stoker element to it. It's just purely based in like trying to research and science and all that kind of stuff.
Okay, cool. That sounds killer. And I've heard y'all talk about it on the podcast before too. I just didn't look it up at the time. So yeah, definitely. I'm interested in that one because I don't believe I've seen it. I may have once you send me the link, but it's not sounding familiar to me right now.
Yeah, we actually did an episode on it, and Rennie and I actually did it. He was a guest on the show, and it's actually one of our. We both really dig that movie, and he's the one who turned me on to it.
Okay, killer. Yeah, I might have to check that out. All right, my number 9 film in the list is going to be Fright Night Part 2.
Excellent choice.
Hell yeah, man. This is one of my favorites. I almost put it higher on the list, but like I said, it was hard to narrow things down where I thought they should be. But yeah, Fright Night Part 2, like great movie. It gets a lot of hate too because I don't think people really watched it when it came out. I like the first one. No, the second one sucks, but the second one holds its own, man. It's almost as good as the first one to me. All the returning characters are there. Charlie Brewster. You got Peter Vincent and all that stuff, and then this time you're fighting the actual sister. I believe it's the sister of the main vampire from the first film, and she's just as brutal as her brother. And I like this one too because it has John Grease. I'm thinking that's how you pronounce his last name. Not 100% sure on that, but anyways, he was Napoleon Dynamite's uncle in Napoleon Dynamite, and he plays like this werewolf type, vampire type thing. And that really got me when I was a kid, man. I used to love that part where he's climbing up the side of the wall to get into the window. And then I think Charlie shuts the window. It might have been Charlie. Shuts the window on his claws and breaks his claws off and he falls to the ground and stuff. I always thought that was cool.
Yeah, man. Fright Night, the two Fright Night films, sort of the 1 and 2 are awesome. They're definitely, now that we're coming into Halloween season, it's probably going to be on my 30 Days of Halloween viewing.
Yeah, that's a great choice, man. And also the roller skating vampire was always something I remember growing up. Like, that's pretty evil, man. You got a roller skating vampire. You don't see that too often.
I don't recall ever seeing another one before, other than the one that's in Fright Night 2.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, they kind of did their own thing with that one. And, it was just solid. It was a great film.
So my number 9 is the Blade trilogy. Which
nice.
I kind of look as like one big movie, even though there's different directors involved.
Mm-hmm.
But Wesley Snipes as Blade, Chris Christopherson, but more importantly, the Marv Wolfman, Gene Colan comic books that they were based on are fucking amazing, in my opinion. So, but the second one, I just want to call the attention. The second episode, the second movie in that trilogy is the one that Guillermo del Toro directed. And, if you watch it these days, some of the CGI and effects are definitely a little hokey, but you got to remember these movies came out like 20 something years ago. So you got to like take that, as it is.
Mm-hmm.
But the second one has almost these like hints of the Strain stories that Guillermo del Toro did later on, like say 15 years later. He had a trilogy of books that he wrote called The Strain, which also were turned into an ill-fated television series called The Strain.
Mm-hmm.
And like the vampires in that had similarities. Like it was almost like he was coming up with those ideas during the making of the second Blade movie. So yeah, I think they're you got martial arts, you got vampires, you got action. It takes place at night. A lot of it, like, what's there not to like about that stuff?
Yeah, I mean, and it's one of the best Marvel movies ever made. You never hear it mentioned, like either of the Blade movies. The third one's okay to me, but the first two, like, those are my like some of my favorites, and they're so dark and like brutal. And Wesley Snipes is a great Blade, man. Like, I know they're doing a remake and stuff, and the person that having the guy that's gonna be playing Blade, he does look pretty cool, but it's still not Wesley Snipes, so and he's not that cool, you know.
Yeah, dude, I love Wesley Snipes, man. I've always been a big fan of his and all of his movies. He's definitely like a '90s actor or whatever, but I always thought he was really cool. And he did all the martial arts stuff himself, which was an added bonus for me.
Yeah, it's nice when you have a real martial artist playing a part for a martial artist, you know.
Yeah.
And he's brutal, man. He's got some like powerful like kicks and like his fighting style is really like just brutal. It fits the part really well. It's not flashy or nothing like that. It's just like get the job done.
I wish they would cross over more with like martial arts and the kind of that, like that sort of vibe into like horror films. I always like when they do that.
Yeah, that was something I liked with the Underworld series too. Like, there's some
Yeah.
similarities there. I enjoyed that. I know a lot of people didn't like Underworld, no, but I thought it was pretty fucking cool. It's like the Matrix and vampires combined. So I really dug that. All right, my number 8 is going to be The Hunger.
Okay.
Yeah,
Yeah, man.
that's a great one. I mean, David Bowie is a vampire. I mean, it doesn't get too much better than that, Like, he could have been a real vampire in real life. Like, he never really aged until he died and still didn't look his age. But that was
Dude,
one growing up. What really got me into that film was the opening segment with Bauhaus, playing Bela Lugosi's dad. I was like, holy shit, this is cool, man. Like, that drew me in, and from then on, I was like, yeah, this is one of the best vampire movies ever made. It's dark. It has that like, I mean, it isn't from the 80s and stuff, but it's true like the 80s vibe, like all the like the goth dark wave scene and stuff like that. It like eats all that up, man. It's what this is. It's like this true vampire like culture. It's really cool.
also, I mean that movie, The Hunger, has been I love that's like one of my favorite movies, man. And it's like it's also one of the first like US like erotic vampire films in some ways. I know the Europeans were doing it a lot. Like they in the '70s, the Europeans were, and Jess Franco's movies, like they had a lot of that kind of like erotic horror vampire like overtones. But I think in the US, The Hunger, it came out in '83, so that was like one of the first forays into that subgenre,
Hmm.
and the sexy vampires, but it was still cool. And yeah, the Bauhaus intro, that whole opening scene with Peter Murphy behind the cage, and it's like the darkness and the mist and everything was like, that was the first time that's actually how I found out about Bauhaus when I was a kid, was like that film. I was like, what's this band, man? Bela Lugosi's dead. Like, that sounds like something I should check out. And that was like my entry point into becoming a Bauhaus fan, actually.
That's a good entry point, man. Because I mean, that was such a cool intro to any kind of movie like that. It blew me away. I was like, I got to watch this whole thing, and it's just so good and it's so dark, and it's good seeing Peter Murphy in a vampire film because he's also very vampiric. He reminds me. He's a very David Bowie type person. He reminds me of like David Bowie's clone, maybe. You know what I mean? Like the way they move, the
Yeah.
way they talk. It's really bizarre.
Oh, definitely, man. I mean, actually, Bauhaus has they did a cover of Ziggy Stardust. So
Hmm.
that Bauhaus is definitely influenced by Bowie for sure.
Yeah, it's a solid movie, and it you can catch it on a lot of like late night stations if you have cable and stuff like that. And I think it's streaming on I think Amazon Prime. I think last time I checked, it was on Prime. So if you want to check that one if you haven't seen it, like that's one of the best. I think that's one of the films you should watch before you die. I know they have all these lists like 100 films you should watch before you die. This is definitely one of them.
Yeah, I actually own a physical copy of that. That film, just one of my favorites.
Hmm. Yeah, I wish I had a physical copy of that one. I think I had it on DVD at one time, and then I ended up having to get rid of half my DVDs way back in the day, and I regret that now because I gave away a lot of good shit. But
So my what are we up to? 8. My
yes,
number 8 is Habit. It's a 1997 film written and directed by Larry Fessenden, and also stars Larry Fessenden too. Are you familiar with that movie?
I've seen it like once, and I remember liking it, but I need to rewatch that one to get re-familiar with it.
It's in a way, it's kind of related to another film that shows up later on my list. Like it's very 90s New York City vibe to it. It kind of like captures that sort of like that era really well. New York in the 90s, a little kind of gritty, kind of like this bohemian, like Lower East Side vibe to it, but like dangerous and all that. And yeah, it's like it's another, this is a favorite topic in vampire films, modern vampire films, is like drug addiction and vampirism. Like it seems like there's another vampire movie that just came out that kind of like has drug addiction, vampirism connections too. But this in the 90s, there was like, that's when they were starting to explore some of that stuff, and The Habit is a good entry point for that.
Yeah, that's definitely one I want to rewatch now since you reminded me of it. And I'm a big fan of his work anyways. He's a good actor and, good behind the camera as well.
I love Larry Fessenden. He's great.
And he was, y'all talked about in your last episode with Jacob's wife on the Necromaniacs podcast. That was cool having, him playing alongside the great Barbara Crampton, who is a vampire.
She is, man. She's like Elizabeth Bathory or something, man. She's like must bathe in the blood of like virgins or something, because she doesn't look like she's aged. She's aged maybe 2 years in the last 30,
Yeah, and I mean she looks great. Like her and Elvira. Like Elvira just turned 70 yesterday. And I can't believe that shit. Yeah, dude, she don't age either, man. Without her makeup and stuff on, she still looks really good. Like it's amazing.
Yeah, dude. She at the Salem Horror Fest a couple of years ago, she was there, and I'm like, this lady has got to be like in her late 60s, and she's still like amazing looking. It's crazy.
Yeah, so I think they're on to some type of blood ritual, perhaps. So if y'all listening, by any weird chance, let me know what's going on there. Is it blood rituals or whatever? Whatever it is, I think it's fucking cool. So, All right. My number 7 is going to be John Carpenter's Vampires.
Excellent choice again.
Yeah, this one, man, this is like the epitome of this a grimy ass fucking, 90s vampire film, like no holds barred, like blood and gore. There's a lot of cheesiness to it, which I really like, which is done on purpose. It has that Carpenter kind of, larger than life feel to it. And, when you add fucking crazy ass James Woods to the mix as a vampire hunter, which is bizarre any damn ways, but he pulls it off super well. It's just a bizarre, really, really killer film. And I love the main vampire, Valak. Like the guy that plays Valak too is like super tall, like just intimidating, way a vampire should be. But he still has that like kind of like gothness to him, from like old school vampires, kind of mixed with the new school. He's just brutal. Like there's a scene in there when he walks up into the hotel room and just throws his hand through the guy that answers the door, and this destroys everybody in the hotel room. This brutally, man, just ripping heads off and shit. And James Woods got to burn like the whole damn hotel down. It's like so good, music wise too. Like it's got a great soundtrack. Like it just feels like you're a vampire hunter in the fucking desert chasing down these goddamn ancient fucking powerful vampires.
See, I definitely like when the vampires are brutal. You know what I mean? And there definitely had like brutal vampires in this movie. And also we got Laura Palmer in there too. We got
oh shit, that's right. Yeah, Cheryl Lee. Yeah.
And she's I love Cheryl Lee, man. What's there not to love about Laura Palmer, especially and I remember Alec Baldwin like smacks her up in that movie, and I'm like, damn, dude, that's like a little brutal, like he kind of roughs her up in that movie.
Yeah, he does, and it looks real as shit too. I mean, it really is slapper. It seemed like it anyways, and it is Daniel Baldwin, who was known to be kind of crazy. And I'm not sure if he's still alive or not. Let me check on that real quick before I say anything. Okay, he's still alive, so that's cool. I thought one of them might have died, so I don't want to talk, too bad about him. But yeah, he was known to be pretty wild. So
Oh,
yeah,
right. It was Daniel Baldwin. Alex. Sorry, I got those two brothers, confused. It was Daniel Baldwin. Alec Baldwin wasn't it. Yeah, I misspoke.
yeah, and they look almost identical. So I don't know if they're not twins. I don't believe, but they all look the damn same. So I always get them confused. I always have to look them up. Like, which Baldwin is that?
Yeah.
Yeah, it's solid, man. Like it holds up too, special effect wise, because most of it was all practical effects. There may have been a few CGI things here and there, but I don't really think so. If there was, they had it blended in there really well. So practical effects always have a better they look better as time goes on because they're practical effects.
That was based on a book. I think the book was called Vampires, maybe too.
I haven't read that. Yeah, it says yep, you're right. It's I think John Stakely is the one that wrote the novel Vampires, and I've never read that. I need to maybe check that one out.
Yeah.
Did you ever watch any sequels? Oh, sorry about that.
Oh no, I didn't even know they had sequels to that. There's Vampires 2.
There is. It's not near as good, but it's entertaining, I guess. I think the second one, if I'm not mistaken, has John Bon Jovi playing the head vampire hunter. So yeah, it's a little weird.
Wow, but Bon Jovi as a vampire hunter. Okay.
Yeah, it's nothing. It's not near like as good as the first one, but it's kind of entertaining. I give it like a 7 or something like that. It's fun to watch on like a late night when you got shit to watch. Check out the second Vampires film.
For my number 7, I'm kind of cheating a little the same way I cheated on my number 9. So it's Nosferatu, A Symphony of Horror, and Nosferatu the Vampire, like the two ones from 1922, like the Murnau film starring Max Schreck as Count Orlok, and then there's the 1979 Werner Herzog loose remake of it with Klaus Kinski and Bruno Ganz. But I feel like you kind of have to you have to have both of those as one entry in some ways. You know what I mean? And like the Nosferatu film and Count Orlok, I think I'll watch that silent film more than I'll watch any of the Universal Dracula movies. You know what I mean?
Right.
And I love Bela Lugosi, but I kind of like I kind of veer more towards Nosferatu. You know what I mean? As far as like my idea of like the vampire.
Yeah, he's more animalistic too. He's not so like romantic like Bela Lugosi is. Like Nosferatu is just kind of a beast.
Yeah, and like the Count Orlok, like that form has popped up in future films, like in Salem's Lot. Barlow was looked like Count Orlok, and actually even in Jacob's Ladder, we're talking about the master, and that had like an Orlok like look to it with the bald head and the hook nose and all that. Just a different take, I guess, on the vampire.
No, I agree with both of those choices. There are my honorable mentions because they're kind of a guaranteed. Like you have to like at least dig one of those films. Like I mean, they're the basis of all vampire films, pretty much. So, and I like Nosferatu a little bit better, the silent movie. There's back when I was a little bit younger, I was up in a music store and stuff, and there was a typo negative Nosferatu DVD where like the whole soundtrack was done by typo negative. Do you remember this?
I do actually, and yes, and that it's actually pretty sick. Actually, it's really cool, man. I really, really dig that.
I regret not picking it up because it was $30 at the time, and I was a kid. I was like, I don't have the money for that, but man, I wish I did now because I can't find it. I haven't done any eBay hunting in a while on it, but last time I checked, it's kind of hard to find.
It might be on YouTube, I imagine. Somebody probably put it on YouTube.
Yeah, you're right, man. It's surprisingly how much shit you can find on YouTube, for free, and it's not really illegal, I guess, because it's on YouTube, and people can take it down if they don't want it up there. But I find a lot of cool 80s stuff on there, 70s stuff, and it's still in its VHS quality, which I like when I'm, watching some of those type films because it keeps the magic alive. Because when they do like HD remakes of some of these films, you can kind of see like where the strings are attached,
I 100% agree, man. I think Aliens, the second Alien movie,
Hmm.
it particularly suffers from HD presentations of that. It works better as an analog kind of like videotape sort of vibe to it.
Yeah, it keeps the magic to it, man. I don't want to know how it's made. I want to, keep the illusion in my head that, this is what it is, like when you start bringing it out with the HD and all this different stuff, like I said, you see the strings, you see you can see what's going on there, you see how fake this looks, but I like to keep the magic as shittier quality, I guess, on some of these older films.
Yeah.
My my number six is one you already mentioned, but I only picked one film out of the series, and that's going to be Blade, the first one.
First one, yeah.
I was rewatching it the other night for like the 150th time because this is one of my favorite films of all time, vampire or not. Like, so good. And Wesley Snipes, he is Blade, and he plays that role so well. And what I like about the first one, out of all of the three movies there, it's like the darkest in tone. There's some shots like where they're going to, where the city's going into darkness, like where the sun's going down. You see there's like super fast shots, and you got really dark, like kind of trip hop shit going on in the background. It's just really cool, really vampiric. It's probably one of the darkest Marvel movies there is, in my opinion. Which it doesn't get the credit it should either. Like everything else, like Avengers this or whatever that, you never hear Blade. I think Blade's one of the best. And this is also Stephen Dorff's, like, this is my favorite movie with him in it. Like, he nails the whole Deacon Frost thing, like, really well. And Chris Christopherson, you can never go wrong with him. He's a fucking badass. And I think he's still living too, which is crazy. He was born in 1936. There's a fun fact for you. Like, and as him as Whistler, like, played the part perfectly. So this is a 10 out of 10 movie for me, by the way. When I scored it and stuff, like, this is a perfect film for me.
Yeah, I love the first one too, man. It's also features Tracy Lords in one of her attempts into legitimate filmmaking and
Hmm.
legitimate acting. So she's in there for a bit, in the kind of club scene. And yeah, I dig stuff from the '90s. Just this definitely has that vibe to it. Like this is what films looked like in that era.
Yeah, there was a darkness to the 90s when it comes to film, like Seven, Blade, like, you name it. Like, those type of films had such a darkness to them. Like, there was the way they were filmed. Everything was super bleak. I love that feeling. You don't get that feeling anymore with the newer stuff, but like
No, man.
90s.
Yeah, dude. Everyone wants everyone to feel good these days, and like, it's you can't offend people. And, I mean, I get it after the last 4 years of, and what we're still going through too with the pandemic. But it's like no one wants to get upset, and that's reflected in the films that we're seeing these days. But I don't know. I just prefer a grittier sort of. My diet leans more towards grittier, darker things.
Yeah, I agree. I think where it ended at was like, to me, I think it ended with the first Saw movie or the first couple Saw movies because they still kind of kept that feeling of the dark, dangerous 90s in the first
Yeah,
like three Saw movies. I really love those films. I think they're fucking great. And they still have that really dark nastiness about them that we had during the 90s.
I tend to agree.
So yeah, that's my number six. And Blades, I think the whole Blade Trinity is streaming on HBO Max. So if you got HBO Max, people, like, you can check it out on there. And then it's all in HD, which doesn't take away too much from Blade. Blade still looks pretty cool in HD. So
So my number six is 30 Days of Night,
nice.
2007, starring Josh Hartnett and features Ben Foster, who's I wouldn't say he's kind of underrated in a lot of ways, but he gets a lot of roles though. He's always like a very very great supporting actor rather.
Mm.
And also, this is another comic book based movie. It's based on the Steve Niles comic book 30 Days a Night. He's done a graphic novel, but then there's all these other tie-in stories that he developed since then. And yeah, this movie, I think, it's funny. Some people didn't like this film, but I from the get go, I loved this movie. I thought it was awesome.
Yeah, I liked it, but I didn't love it. I don't know. I think it was the human characters I didn't care for too much. I
I can see
dig the
that.
vampires, man. Like the vampires are brutal as fuck, but it's like I didn't care about none of the humans. Like I didn't care about them.
The setting up in the bleak north wastelands, and the vampires being these like a totally different race of beings, really, with their own language and everything, and just the animalistic brutality of them. And, they didn't really. I kind of wish they explained more about their origins in the film, but they look like they were in the bad seats or something. The vampires, like, they had these like kind of black suits and stuff. They looked like they were band members with Nick Cave. I
Hmm.
always thought that was kind of funny in the movie.
Yeah, they were brutal, man, and they had a like Klingon type language they were using. It was like grunts and growls and stuff, but that's how they communicated. It reminded me of Klingon a little bit. I don't know if they use that as an influence, but
Yeah, maybe I can see that.
but that's what other spot would you want for a vampire? Like you got actual 30 days of night. That's the perfect spot to go do your thing, and that's what they did.
Yeah, that one. Obviously, as you see, that enters high in my hierarchy of vampire movies.
No, I think it's a great choice. Definitely, and people should definitely check that one out and the graphic novel. My number five is going to be Bram Stoker's Dracula, directed by the great Francis Ford Coppola. This is this is one of the first rated R movies I ever saw as a kid. My parents took me to see it. I think when I was like maybe 10 or so. Whenever it came out, I think it was around 10 or maybe a little bit younger than that, and it blew me away then, and it still holds up now. I think Gary Oldman he kills it. He's got one of the best portrayals of Dracula ever, in my opinion. Like he just nails that role. And then the different forms of Dracula too are a big thing with this movie. Like he takes the werewolf form, then he goes in like that super bat mode, like bat demon type looking thing towards the end. Like that shit still looks good now. The special effects are great. Um, you got Winona Ryder, who's another ageless beauty. I think she might be doing some blood rituals as well.
Yeah,
Like,
probably, yeah.
yeah, definitely. Anthony Hopkins, Keanu Reeves. I mean, it's a stat cast. Like the cast is all grade A, badass actors and stuff, and has great music. The visuals are beautiful. Like, and it's dark as well as beautiful. It's like it's dark and beautiful. It's like the best combination of both, I guess, and it has that gothy feel to it. But this is by far one of the best vampire movies ever made.
I tend to agree, man, and we'll find out why I agree so much later on. But yeah, that's I think Oldman is one of the best Draculas ever, really. You know,
Hmm.
I mean, it's a different take on Count Dracula, but it's like very cool, a very '90s take on Count Dracula, I might add.
Yeah, especially when he's in his human form and he's like strutting around with his like cool shades on and stuff. I'm like, that's how a vampire should be, like this total badass.
Yeah, I agree.
And if I'm not mistaken, I had shades just like that when I was a kid because of this movie. So,
Yeah,
oh, the '90s.
yeah, man. Even I like Keanu Reeves, even though he's sometimes like unconvincing in his roles, but you got to give him props too for stuff.
Yeah, I'm a fan of his, man. Like, I love him in Point Break. That's one of my favorite roles with Keanu Reeves is Point Break. That movie still kicks ass. But it's just all how you utilize him. He's like Nicolas Cage. If you utilize him right, he's fucking amazing. But if you put him in a role that's not really for him, he's not going to shine.
That's true.
I mean, look at him now, John Wick. I mean, those movies are fucking great. Some of the best action movies ever made, and they're all good. Like none of them suck. So
Yeah, I'm a big fan of those movies for sure.
it was a straight brutal and very realistic when it comes to like action movie type stuff. Like it's a kind of realistic scenario. A lot of gunplay, minimal martial arts, but what he does with the martial arts is very effective. It's like get him down, take him out. There's no fancy stuff there.
Yep.
So. But yeah, that was
Oh,
my number five. So I guess we're up to number four now for you.
okay.
Or is it now your
I'm
number five?
no, it's my number five
There you
is
go.
Abel Ferrara's The Addiction from
Oh, nice.
1995. Yeah, that's similar to The Habit. It's got that 90s thing going on, and it's got a great cast. You got Lily Taylor, you got Christopher Walken, Annabella Sciorra, a pre-Sopranos Edie Falco, as well as a pre-Sopranos small part for Michael Imperioli.
Mm-hmm.
And yeah, it's just I'm a big fan of his films. Anyway, Abel Ferrara. This is probably one of my favorite of his, specifically within his little body of work. And it's black and white. It's like super gritty. It had, once again, it's because everyone knows Abel Ferrara likes to party, so it's a lot of it has to do with sort of allegories for drug addiction and that sort of stuff. But it also just harkens back to like a bygone era in New York City, just like a New York that doesn't exist anymore. And that's why I always like to watch this film as well as Habit, because it just captures that era, really well. And yeah, it's just like a brutal urban vampire movie.
Yeah, I actually watched this because we're talking about it on the podcast. I may have seen it a long time ago and forgot about it, but it was kind of like a fresh watch for me. And it's streaming on Arrow right now too. The Arrow app
Yeah.
has it on there, so I was like, oh, I'm checking this out. I heard y'all talk about it. And I was like, fuck, this is really good.
Yeah, man, it's I just keep going back to this. Like I have actually I have the Arrow Blu-ray version, with all the extras and interviews and all this other stuff on it. And just Abel Ferrara himself, if you ever want to check him out in interviews, he's a trip, man. He's just like old school, like just filmmaker, you know what I mean? New York City, Italian American filmmaker. He's like, successful, but he's not as much of a household name as some other people from New York, other New York filmmakers. But he's had his definite successes with like Bad Lieutenant, King of New York. And then he just kind of like is too much of a wild man, I guess, to exist within the Hollywood system. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, King of New York is another killer one that he did. I definitely like that one.
Yeah.
And Christopher Walken as a vampire was great. I wish he had more screen time in this one, but still to seeing him as a vampire, like he was being Christopher Walken. You can't be nothing but Christopher Walken. I don't think he knows how to do anything different. He's just so weird and so like captivating.
Well, I mean, the thing is, if he's not starring in the starring role, he's going to steal the scene from everybody. That's why I think they kept his involvement in the film to a minimum, because you really remember the scenes that he was in, and he's such a charismatic like presence on screen that unless he's the star, he's gonna take steal the show, really.
Yeah, he will eat up the scene, that's for sure.
Yeah.
My number 4 is a good one. A lot of people may have not seen is Near Dark, which came out in 1987. Yeah, Near Dark. If you haven't seen it, like, don't go by what the DVD or Blu-ray cover shows you, because there's one that's out now. One of the cover arts looks like fucking Twilight, and this is not Twilight, not at all.
No, definitely not. Definitely not.
This was directed by Catherine Bigelow, and stars like Lance Henriksen. One of Bill Paxton's. This is one of my favorite roles Bill Paxton ever played was from Severin. Like, yeah, that alone right there sells it for me. Like anything Bill Paxton and him as a vampire, it's fucking brutal. And with this one, they never really call them vampires, but they are vampires. They're more like a traveling pack of nomads, from all different kind of eras of life. Lance Henriksen's kind of like you kind of tell by the way he dressed, he's like kind of a Civil War guy. Maybe that's when he was turned. And you have Bill Paxton, who was maybe turned around in the 50s or so. Who knows, really? But they just go around. They're nomads. They go to different towns. They do their little routines of how they catch their victims and stuff. And just go around killing and keep on moving. But yeah, to me, Bill Paxton stole the movie for me. Like Severin is just fucking super like memorable and stuff, like the lines and all he has it and the way he acts. Like this is Bill Paxton, who was one of the like finest actors ever, in my opinion. So this one's really good, and everybody has a good part in it. Just Bill Paxton stands out for me, and the Severin and stuff. It's dark, gritty, has that '80s kind of feel to it. Great music. Like, this is another one of the best vampire films ever made. And it was kind of hard where I wanted to put it in the list. I wanted to go a little bit higher, wanted to go here. So I just settled where it's at right now. But this could rank actually higher in my list if I wanted to. So,
Yeah, it's a badass movie, and I'm also a Bill Paxton fan and a huge Lance Henriksen fan. So yeah, the two of them together in this movie are pretty great, actually.
yeah. And Lance Henriksen as a vampire is pretty nasty, too. Like, he was made for that role, I think. And he never really he doesn't really age really. He stays the same look he had in this film. That's how he looks the same in everything. It's kind of bizarre too. Like another kind of maybe he got frozen time as a vampire in real life. I don't know. Like a lot of these people I'm talking about in these movies could be vampires in real life. If you are, let me know. Me and my wife are looking, turn into immortals and stuff. So
Yeah, they're like, yeah, Hendrickson has that eternal, like, gritty, leathery kind of look about him all the time.
And shit, when he was younger and playing in Pumpkinhead, he still looked the same too. Like he was all like cut up and everything, but he had the same face. Like he's always looked like he was about 50 years old and stayed there.
Yeah, totally.
So bizarre. But yeah, Near Dark, man. If you see that one, like I said, don't go by what you see on the Blu-ray because I do not like the art on the new Blu-ray they did, or I think it came out a few years ago. It looks like fucking Twilight's horrible. But give this one a chance. I found it originally at a Kmart on DVD when I was a teenager for like $5 at Kmart. I'm like, oh, this looks interesting, and I was like, I fell in love like first watch. So
Nice.
yeah.
So my number 4 is the Let the Right One In, the Swedish version of that film.
Good one.
Yeah, back from 2008, directed by Tomas Alfredson, based on the novel by John Lindquist, which I read, and the 500-page epic novel. And that movie, like, I question why. I mean, I get why they made a U.S. version of it, but the U.S. version does not even come close to how good the Swedish version is, in my opinion. I mean, it's like the Swedish version just bleak and cold, and I don't know, it just had a very distinct, unique vibe to it. And if you're gonna see this movie and you're torn on which one to watch, I say watch the Swedish version. Read the subtitles. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I agree with that. And I've seen both versions too.
Oh, I did too. I mean, excuse me. The U.S. version was definitely, competent. You know what I mean? It was good. If you weren't aware of the original or the novel, and you saw the U.S. version, you'd be satisfied. But if you just go to the original source, it's just so much better, I think.
Yeah, I agree with you on that one. Read the subtitles. It's darker. The film's a lot darker than the U.S. one. The U.S. one was pretty dark too, but this one, like I said, the coldness of it, I would definitely go with the original.
And just the way it looks too, like the way it's filmed, and like the whole atmosphere of it is just it's so just bleak feeling,
Mm-hmm. That's something I never understand. Like a film would come out overseas, like just come out, then we make it a U.S. remake of it the next year, and it's pretty much the same exact film with American speakers, like American language. Like it doesn't make sense to me. Read the damn subtitles. It's cool,
Well, the worst, is the Quarantine film that, like, wantonly didn't even credit Wreck at all. Like, they didn't even talk about Wreck being in existence, and it's a literal remake of the movie.
And it's horrible too, man. Wreck destroys it. Wreck is so fucking good. Like the first two Wreck movies I like. I think there's a third one as well, which kind of took a different feel. But like the first two Wreck films are so good. Then you have Quarantine 1, and I believe they did a Quarantine 2. And like I said, it's a direct ripoff, and it sucks.
Yeah, it's pretty bad. And they never went any further with it either. And the Rex movies became like a series of films.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I definitely recommend those. My number 3 is a classic. I think everybody pretty much loves this film, but From Dusk Till Dawn. That's
Oh yeah, man.
you can't get much better than that. I rewatched it the other night on HBO Max, where it's streaming it. Again, HBO Max has a lot of good horror films up right now. But yeah, I remember the first time I watched this one. I was a kid. I was probably like maybe 11 or 12, and it had me up for like 2 weeks straight, man, because I swore I saw some of these fucking vampires walking down my hallway, coming into my bedroom. I could not fucking sleep. I was like, man. And I just, from then I was hooked. Like, oh, I got to watch more of it. So, I rewatch it for I wouldn't be afraid of it anymore. But still, like those first couple weeks of seeing From Dusk Till Dawn really got to me. Because some of the best like vampire creature makeup ever, like they look great. And with Robert Rodriguez like directing everything, it had that like really gritty, desperado feel to it, being that it did Desperado and stuff, and it's just so good. Like all the acting is good. Like I like the storyline of like Aztec vampires. Like that makes sense to me. They've been living for like thousands of years and stuff, living off like bikers and truckers and stuff. I just think that's cool as hell. Like that's where I would be if I was like that type of vampire, like a real gritty, like kind of primitive vampire would be in Mexico.
Yeah, it's a good one, man. And just in general, I'm a fan of Robert Rodriguez. I think he's a pretty sick like filmmaker, and that's a good one, man. It's fun. It's once again, it's a film very much of the era that it came out. It's like they don't really make movies like that anymore these days.
No, it has like I said, like we were talking about earlier, it has that dark '90s feel to it, and it's like super dangerous. Like there's some stuff in there that definitely wouldn't go nowadays. Like there's some pretty graphic shit in there, especially with the bank teller at the first half of the movie, which was
Oh
even
yeah,
fucked up back then. Like I was like, whoa, I didn't understand it when I was a little kid, but when I got a little bit older, I was like, oh, that's really fucked up.
Quentin Tarantino, who's generally not a very good actor, is he's actually it's one of his better roles. I think is his role in that film.
Yeah, I agree. And yeah, he makes a mean looking vampire too when he started changing. I was like, oh, that's cool. He's got like a Frankenstein look to him.
Yeah, totally.
I think one of my favorite parts of the whole movie is you got the band on stage normal for a little bit, and when shit goes downhill, you turn to the stage and you got the one dude playing a leg as a guitar and shit, and there's other guys that got a head like on the other side playing this drums and stuff. I'm like, oh, this is fucking badass, man.
Yeah, man, totally.
Great music too. Like the soundtrack was really good and fitting for it. Like it had that. I think ZZ Top did a song for it that was really really cool. If I'm not mistaken, it was on the soundtrack, but it fit that mood. Like it had that like uh Mexican like feel to it. Like almost it was just I don't know. It was just a gritty ass fucking awesome vampire movie.
Coming down to the line here, man. So my number three is Daughters of Darkness.
Oh, nice.
Back from the 70s, 1971.
Hmm.
Belgian movie, stars. We got two, like iconic horror film women, ladies in it. We got Delphine Seyrig and Andrea Rao, who most people are, I imagine, are fans of them. And yeah, it's like this kind of like take on the Elizabeth Bathory sort of mythology, where Delphine Seyrig plays Bathory, who's traveling. They're staying in this like abandoned, not abandoned, but it's like it's still in operation, but this hotel that has no one in it. And then like another couple comes in and they stay there. Then vampiric stuff happens basically, and it's like a very atmospheric, very stylized, very European looking, as a just like that Euro feel to it. And yeah, just like a really cool movie. And if anyone hasn't seen it, I felt like I had to put a 70s European, sort of like erotic vampire movie in this list. And that's definitely one of the better ones out there, I think.
Yeah, that one's solid. And if I'm not mistaken, I think Joe Bob had that on his show on Shudder, so it might still be up there. I know it was on Shudder.
Oh, yeah, you're right. I think actually.
Yep. I think Joe Bob did some on there. I think that's where I first watched it because I don't think I've seen it before that. And if it was on his show or on Shudder in general, I'd watch it and I really enjoyed it. It was good.
I think you're right about Joe Bob having it on his show. Yeah.
So if anybody listening that wants to check that one out, if it's up on Shudder still, check out the seasons of Joe Bob. I'm not sure which season it's on, but just kind of look through there and find the one with Joe Bob doing the commentary. That'll set you right.
Speaking of Joe Bob, it's now that we're getting into Halloween season, man, I'm sure there's going to be a special up at some point.
Yes, they're doing a special. I think on the 8th, if that whatever Friday it is of that week, because I know I'm going to New Orleans the week that Joe Bob's going to be on, so it's going to be whatever that Friday is coming up, like October 3rd, the week of October 3rd. So it might be that 8th, whatever the Friday is. There's going to be a Joe Bob special. I don't know what films are going to be on there yet, but that's cool. They're doing a special, and there's going to be 4 more specials after that till the new season comes up. So.
Man, it's good. He's got to keep us fans, happy until the new season, pops off. So that's cool.
Yeah, it ain't the same without Joe Bob on Fridays, man. Like I said, it's so weird how, you're just watching that by yourself, but you're not really by yourself because like so many people are watching it with you. It's weird. It's like a weird energy you get from it. A real positive, weird energy.
Yeah, I would plan my Friday nights around that a lot of times. So yeah, it's pretty cool.
Yeah, my wife don't watch Joe Bob with me, or she'd be watching something else. But like, oh well, it's Joe Bob day, so usually that means me, my black cat Lily, she'd be up in my lap watching that with me, and I'm usually eating pizza or some shit because I kind of make it like a pizza Friday with fucking Joe Bob, kind of bring back the older days when I was younger. So
nice, that's awesome.
yeah,
Dude. I love
yeah.
that.
My cat Lily, man, she loves horror movies. She gets up there right next to me. And I'm not saying she's watching them, but she's always there next to me when I'm watching horror. If I'm watching an action movie, she don't really care too much about that. She'll go mosey off somewhere else. But
really?
She seems to be attracted to horror. Yeah, it's
That's
weird as
cool.
shit. Yeah.
Nice.
So, all right, let's see, my number 2. We're down to number 2 is going to be the Tom Holland classic Fright Night.
Oh, yeah, man. Okay. I see what you're doing here. Yeah.
Yeah, you can't go wrong with Fright Night. And this was a hard one between my number 1 and number 2 because this one also fluctuates because, this to me is the epitome of the 80s horror vampire film. Like it's everything good about the 80s packed into one film. Great music. I like Chris Sarandon playing Jerry Dandridge. Like he's a badass vampire, man. And he's like the epitome of like cool vampire like stuff, vampire dudes and stuff. The way he dresses, like the way he acts and everything. And when he does turn, he turns pretty fucking brutal. It's no little romantic vampire, Twilight crap or whatever. He turned in like a monster dude. But the way he can like, romanticize you into liking him like he does to, to Charlie's mom and stuff. So, and you can't forget fucking Brewster and his partner there, Evil Ed. So Evil Ed was so creepy to me back when I was a kid, and you see Evil Ed when he turned into a vampire is like extra creepy for some reason. So I think the actor that plays him is kind of creepy. So
that's a good one, man. It's like I said, it's probably going to be in my. I try to do most years. I usually do this 30 days of Halloween where I watch a movie every night during the month of October, horror film, and usually, Fright Night's part of that. Usually, at least one, the first one for sure, maybe the second one.
Yeah, most definitely. It's always in my 30 days of Halloween watches, which I watch horror all year long, just like you do. But like for Halloween, there's certain movies you watch, like you're saying, like this one here, like Hocus Pocus is another one. They're like kind of must watches for the month of October.
Three movies that I always watch pretty much in a row would probably be Halloween 1, 2, and Season of the Witch, Halloween 3.
Oh yeah, I love Halloween 3. There's a lot of haters for that one, but I love it, man, because the bizarreness of it. No Michael Myers in there except for that one commercial they see, or not. It was like a news thing or whatever they saw in the bar, and you see a glimpse of Michael Myers. Everything else, he's not even in the fucking movie. It's great.
As time goes on, I think that's more that movie. The existence of that film is more and more brilliant to me, honestly.
It's kind of the epitome of Halloween. It is Halloween, like the actual holiday of Halloween. Like it is everything about Halloween in that movie. That's what I love about it.
Oh, totally. So my number 2 is a movie that we talked about earlier. It's The Hunger. It's the 1983 Tony Scott movie, and we said a lot of nice things about it earlier on. And one of the other things too, I just want to mention is that it was one of like an early version of big Hollywood money going into a horror film. Like it was actually made. was a film with, Catherine Deneuve was in it, and it actually was a budgeted film because like around 1983, you got to remember that's also the era of like slasher films, and those were generally lower budget movies, that were a little bit more extreme. And The Hunger was a major studio foray into the horror genre.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I agree with that on your list there too. So great minds think alike, having The Hunger on their list like that. So yeah, I mean you
Yeah.
can't go with the vampire list without The Hunger. I don't think.
Also, just everyone in that club scene. Like one of my favorite things, man, about that movie was the club scene. It's like everyone's wearing sunglasses inside, at night and everything. And it's so stylized. It's so just vibe. The vibe of it is it's pretty awesome. Very 80s.
Yeah, most definitely. I think there's a episode of the X-Files that kind of took some reference from The Hunger. There's a vampire episode in like season 2 or 3, one of the earlier seasons, and it's got a real like Hunger vibe to it, and it feels like they got a lot, from The Hunger on that one. I don't know exactly what episode it was, but you may know, or you know what I'm talking about.
I know the one you're talking about. I'm actually watching. I'm going back to season 1, and I'm watching the X-Files again. It's
Nice.
I mean, a couple of nights, here and there, I'll watch a couple episodes, and I'm really enjoying revisiting all that old stuff.
They still hold up really well.
Yeah, absolutely, man. Really well written, acting's good, that kind of stuff. It's great.
Mm-hmm. All right. Well, it looks like we're down to number one. And my number one is the 1987 classic, The Lost Boys.
I figured that might show up on one of our lists. That's a classic movie, man.
Man, I love it. And Joel Schumacher, the director or whatever, he like him himself, like he was a lost boy himself, like ever seen the way he dressed and everything. Like this was like him on film pretty much. He was very vampiric and stuff, like for back in the 80s. And I just think this is like a masterpiece of like a vampire film. Like it doesn't get much better than this. I haven't seen it. This is why this is my number one. And you got Corey Haim in there and stuff, and Feldman's in there. Like those are like idols from my past, and unfortunately, Corey Haim's not with us anymore. And Corey Feldman went super crazy. He does dance music.
All right, so those two guys, man, they're like like victims of the Hollywood system, it seems.
Yeah, unfortunately, I think that had a lot to do with it. Like they were exposed to too many things way too early and kind of fucked them up.
But we got also Jason Patric, man. It's like one of the most. He's got like such a strong presence, Jason Patric, and it's too bad that he's not really in a lot of films these days. But that was kind of like his moment of like either becoming like a screen heartthrob and going in the other direction, which he chose.
Yeah, and he was like right there too, man. He had that whole like NXS look going on with him, like he could have been something like really big, like. But yeah, he went the other direction, unfortunately.
Well, I think that was by choice. I think I read an interview with him where he's like, yeah, I just I didn't want to be like Brad Pitt or something, even though he is a far superior actor to Brad Pitt, especially in that period of time. But like, he's like, yeah, I just wanted to act in movies that I thought were interesting films.
Mm-hmm.
So you got to respect that. You know what I mean?
Yeah, definitely. And he had some acting chops too, man. So yeah, that's a good decision. As long as it's like it wasn't something that went downhill with him. If he'd chose to do that, that's cool, man. Definitely respect that. I also enjoyed the vampires in this one too. Kiefer Sutherland made a hell of a vampire, and his whole gang was great. Like, is everything you want to be, pretty much. I want to be a lost boy. This is the cool shit ever. Do what you want to do, like fucking ride around motorcycles, fucking jump off train trestles and stuff. I mean, don't get much better than that. And their design was cool. They looked brutal when they turned and stuff like that, and they live to kill and have fun.
Yeah, totally, man. That's a good film. It's on my like sort of runner-up list, I suppose.
That's cool. Yeah, I figured it'd be on your list somewhere, because this is like this is a classic, and then me, it's always held its own as number one. Like it'd go from Fright Night to Lost Boys, like it kind of back and forth. But as of right now, I think I'm choosing Lost Boys as my number one. So
My number one is Bram Stoker's Dracula.
Nice.
Francis Ford Coppola extravaganza from 1992. And I got to say, man, like, you might notice that the Universal Bela Lugosi Dracula is not on here, and none of the Hammer films featuring Dracula, but the Christopher Lee version, are not on my list. And that's because I feel like, there's only room for one of those guys on this top 10 list. And as of right now, as of this moment in time, I pick Oldman as my Dracula.
Nice.
I'm making a statement there. You know what I mean? I know that it's like, Christopher Lee is fine. Dracula, we got, Bela Lugosi, the original, obviously. But as of right now, I think I'm veering more towards Gary Oldman as my favorite version of Count Dracula.
I agree with you on that. Definitely 100%.
Yeah. And, just a solid movie. It's very of the 90s, as we were saying. And, it's just like a quality film. And, I revisit it all the time. I watch it every year, at least once or twice. And it might show up on my 30 Days of Halloween viewing list. We'll see. Likely it will.
Yeah, that would be a good title to have in your 30 days for sure. I know it'll be on mine. I mean, I'm waiting for October to get here, then I'm going to rewatch it again. I rewatch it at least twice, maybe 3 times a year, but it's more special when October comes around.
Well, as it stands right now, October is right around the corner, man. So we're zeroing in on it.
Yep, and speaking like October and like vampires and stuff, we're heading down to New Orleans around the French Quarter and stuff, and there's a lot of vampiric shit that goes on down there, or used to go on down there, from what I used to know about. So we're gonna do some investigation down there. Go to the voodoo shops and check out some of the vampire tours that they give down there. They may be tourist traps. I don't know. It'll still be pretty cool.
Yeah, it's like I was never really into Lestat or any of that stuff. The Anne Rice. That was a little too like I don't know. That was never really my bag.
Right. I like the books, and I like Interview with the Vampire and stuff. And I was into it a lot in my teenage years. I'm not gonna lie about that. Like, I was really into Anne Rice. So
Well, that's
there's
cool.
there's some things that are quite embarrassing. I was way back in the early days of the band and stuff. I was experimenting with different Anne Rice like vampire character names as like a stage name. And I won't talk about none of that. That's nobody needs to know.
Dude, I'm right there with you with embarrassing stuff from the past for sure, man. There's like tons of stuff that I've done that I'm sure people will cringe. It makes me cringe. So there's no fault in that, man. None at all.
That's good because I was thinking about that the other day. I'm like, hope nobody ever sees those pictures like with my name I use back then. So I'm like, oh, fuck that. But hey, that was like fucking 15 years ago, maybe longer. So
that's awesome though, man.
I had a few honorable mentions I wanted to talk about, just like 2 of them. Just if people didn't know about these 2 movies, but the first one, which is streaming on Shudder right now, is Bliss. I think it's an excellent modern vampire movie. Have you seen that one?
Yeah, dude, I love it, man. That's like definitely. I didn't really come up with like a formal list of honorable mentions, but that would be on there too. That's a great movie.
Yeah, man, it's got such a good fucking soundtrack too. Like the first scene in that movie when she enters the bar, Electric Wizard's playing on the background and shit. I'm like, holy crap! Whoever directed this knows their music. Wherever he had like running the music score and all that stuff. Like the score was just fantastic for the whole movie. Like it was just crazy, and it was a different take on the whole vampire genre too. It wasn't like your typical I'll bite you on your neck, you turn. It was totally different. Dealt with like pills, which is weird, but it worked.
Well, that's the director's Joe Bagos.
Mm-hmm.
And, I interviewed him for the Holy Mountain magazine actually, and right around the time this came out, and he also did VFW, that movie that came out afterwards.
Yeah, another killer one.
Yeah, he's a heavy metal fan of metal music and extreme music and all that.
That's killer. Yeah, I've been trying to get him on the show, interview him and stuff. He's a little hard to contact. He doesn't have like just a straight email and stuff like that. So hopefully down the line in the future, I can get him on the podcast.
Yeah, I think he'd be stoked to do it, man. I don't have his information. I would share his info with you, but it was set up through someone else. So yeah, that's. I'll see if I can dig something up. Maybe I can help you out with that.
Much appreciated. Thank you. My second movie, my other honorable mention, I just did two of them, was Shadow of the Vampire.
Oh yeah, man.
I
Yeah.
thought that was killer. I mean, fucking John Malkovich playing Nosferatu, that was cool as hell. Even though it was like a kind of a parody, but it wasn't towards the end, It ended up he was a real vampire, the guy playing Nosferatu. Like, I don't know, it was cool, really unique, really well done.
If I were to have my runner-up list, it would probably have Martin on it.
Oh yeah, Martin.
That's a good one. And of course, I didn't have From Dusk Till Dawn on my main list, so that would be on there, as well as Lost Boys probably would be on there too.
Nice. Between both our lists there, like, whoever's listening, man, that's a ton of solid movies there. That could keep you busy for like at least a year, or half a year at least.
Yeah. There's some. There's also some obscure ones on there too that you might have trouble finding, but if they're worth finding if you want to really check them out for sure.
Yeah, 100%. Like, and with all the streaming services out there now, you should be able to find most of these films, And if they're not up on the regular streaming services, YouTube's a good source. So,
yeah,
excellent. Well, Mike, that was a epic top 10 list.
Yeah, dude, it was a lot of fun, and as usual, it's great talking to you. And thanks for having me on the show. It was great.
Oh yeah, and we'll do another top list somewhere down the line too. I have to think of some other cool things we can talk about with like a top 5 or top 10 list, So we'll definitely do this again.
Maybe some kind of year-end thing, maybe.
Yeah, that'd be cool. Do our favorites of the year or something. That'd be cool.
Sure.
I'm down with that. Excellent. Well, Mike, I hope you have a killer rest of your weekend and stuff, man.
You too, man. We'll talk soon.
All right, take it easy.
Good night.